Welcome to Honeybee, real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. Some moments in life divide your world into a before and an after. What happened during what I thought would be our anniversary dinner became one of those turning points for me. 3 years of dating, months of secretly planning what I hoped would be a proposal, and it all fell apart because of a phone call I was never meant to hear. My name is Warren. Nancy and I had been together for 3 years when everything between us began to unravel. During that time, I believe we had built a solid, committed relationship moving steadily toward marriage. We first met through mutual friends at a house party, and from that very first conversation, I felt there was something truly special about her. Our relationship grew naturally over time. We both had demanding jobs, me as an account manager at a marketing firm, and Nancy as a nurse at the city hospital. Because of our hectic schedules and the fact that we lived in different parts of town, we decided early on to keep separate living arrangements while figuring out long-term plans. She shared a downtown apartment with her roommate Carol, while I rented a small house about 20 minutes away. That arrangement worked well in the beginning. It gave us both independence during the week while letting us dedicate weekends to each other. Our weekends became sacred. From Friday night through Sunday evening, that was our time. To connect, to grow closer, to strengthen the foundation of what I believe would become a marriage. Sometimes we stayed at each other's places. Sometimes we went out to restaurants and movies, took day trips, or simply spent quiet evenings cooking together and sharing dreams about the future. For the past year, I had been preparing to propose. I'd been working with a jeweler, researching styles, designing a ring, even speaking to her parents to ask for their blessing. The ring I chose was a classic solitaire with a round diamond, the exact style she once admired when we flipped through wedding magazines. Every detail, down to the engraving on the band, was carefully chosen, but then Nancy's behavior toward me began to shift. At first it was subtle, easy to dismiss as stress from her long hours at work. She started showing less enthusiasm about our weekend plans, often preferring to stay in or cancel altogether. Family obligations, work emergencies, a friend in crisis. Every excuse sounded believable, but the pattern that formed was impossible to ignore. What used to be automatic plans became negotiations. She would agree to see me, but without her old excitement. Even when we were together, she seemed distracted. Conversations that once flowed easily turned strained. She avoided discussions about our future, deflecting when I brought up moving in together or the vacation we had been planning since the start of the year. Her phone, once never an issue between us, suddenly became ever-present. She checked it constantly, texting during movies, stepping outside to take urgent calls, even during our most private moments. 2 months passed like this. We barely saw each other, and when we did, our conversations felt shallow and forced. I tried addressing it, but she brushed off my concerns as overthinking. She said she was stressed from work and dealing with personal matters she didn't want to burden me with, but her words didn't match her actions. When she said she was working late, she often seemed to be somewhere social. When she claimed exhaustion, she'd post photos out with friends. The distance between her excuses and the truth became too clear to overlook. I knew something was wrong. So I decided to make an effort to bring us back together. Instead of accepting her latest excuse, I told her I wanted us to celebrate our anniversary properly, with dinner at her favorite Italian restaurant downtown. She hesitated, as usual, mentioning fatigue and work. But this time I pushed back. I told her this night was important to me, that I missed her, and that we needed time together. After some back and forth, she reluctantly agreed. I booked the reservation, requested a quiet table, and spent the week anticipating that evening. I hoped it would help us reconnect. Maybe even be the moment I had been waiting for to propose. Saturday night, I arrived early to ensure everything was perfect. The restaurant was softly lit, bustling but not loud, the kind of romantic atmosphere we had always loved. The hostess seated me by a window overlooking the city lights. Nancy arrived shortly after. Despite the distance between us lately, she looked stunning, dressed beautifully, with her hair and makeup done in a way that reminded me of why I had fallen for her. For the first few minutes, it felt like the old us. We talked, laughed, and for a moment, I thought maybe things really could go back to the way they were. Dinner flowed better than I had dared to expect. She was engaged, laughing, asking questions, and actually listening. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was sitting across from the woman I had fallen in love with, not the distant version who had been drifting away. We lingered over dessert, sipped coffee, and for the first time in months, I felt hopeful again. It wasn't the right moment to propose, but maybe that moment wasn't far off. When I excused myself to pay the bill and step into the restroom, I planned to return and suggest we continue the night somewhere else. But when I came back, I saw Nancy on her phone. That wasn't surprising, given her recent habits, but it stung that she couldn't wait until after dinner. I decided to approach from the side to surprise her, but as I got close enough to hear, what began as a playful impulse turned into something devastating. She was on the phone with a friend, probably Carol. I froze as I overheard her say she thought I had brought her there to propose. Her tone was casual, almost dismissive. Then came the words that shattered everything. She said that if I had proposed, she would have gotten up and walked out. And then she added that nothing could interfere with her relationship with Michael. That name hit me like a punch to the chest. Michael, another man, someone who clearly mattered more to her than the 3 years we had spent building our relationship. In that moment, every excuse, every cancellation, every distraction, all of it suddenly made sense. It wasn't work stress. It wasn't personal issues. She was involved with someone else. I stood there, numb, realizing the future I had been carefully planning was already gone. The ring in my pocket felt unbearably heavy. Instead of confronting her, I quietly walked out of the restaurant to the side exit, leaving her at the table, still on her phone, probably relieved I hadn't proposed. Walking to my car, I felt like I was in a dream. Just hours earlier, I had walked in as a man in love, thinking about a proposal. Now I was leaving knowing that everything I believed about our relationship had been a lie. She called me minutes later, confused about why I had left. I told her I knew about Michael, that I had heard everything. She tried to deny it, pretended she didn't know what I meant, but I refused to play along. I hung up and ignored every call and text that followed. By the next day, it was clear the relationship I thought was heading toward marriage was already over. The hardest part wasn't just a betrayal. It was realizing that while I had been saving for a ring and planning a future, she had been slowly pulling away, giving her heart to someone else. Looking back, the signs had always been there. I just didn't want to see them. I had been preparing a proposal while she was preparing her exit. That dinner, the night I thought would bring us back together, became the moment I finally faced the truth. Sometimes the most important truths come from words you were never meant to hear. That evening taught me that love isn't always mutual, that commitment isn't always shared, and that sometimes the greatest act of honesty is seeing someone's betrayal clearly for what it is. I never spoke to Nancy again after that week. The engagement ring went back to the jeweler. The future I imagined disappeared as quickly as it takes to overhear a phone call. It wasn't the ending I planned, but it was the one I needed.